The lady from the church asked me to pray for her husband's soul. I said, "Of course. When did he die?" And she answered, "Tomorrow." No child should die alone. That's why I decided to let my son invite some friends over. Someone started having a coughing fit at my workplace. The problem is that I work alone in a morgue. Never knock on your door from the inside at dawn. The devil can knock on the outside. These macabre stories and others that can't be told on the channel, you'll see in the Cursed ebook. The link is in the comments. Buy it now. The circus came to town under a veil of darkness, its gaudy lights flickering like malevolent stars in the night. Among the attractions was a game advertised with sinister charm. Read the rules before you join this clown's game. The words, scrawled in dripping red ink, seemed to pulse with an unsettling energy. The faint whisper of laughter carried on the wine, sending shivers down your spine as you read the rules, each one more disturbing than the last. Rule 1. Never look away from the clown's eyes. The ink seemed to writhe on the page as if alive, the words themselves foretelling doom. The clown's painted eyes, perpetually wide and gleaming, seemed to follow you wherever you went. A sickening sense of dread enveloped you, the promise of something horrifying waiting behind every glance you dared to break away. Rule 2. Answer every question truthfully. As you read this rule, a cold sweat broke out on your forehead. The game was not just a series of twisted games, but an interrogation of your deepest fears and secrets. The clown's questions would dig into your soul, unearthing truths you'd hoped to keep buried. There was no escaping the psychological torment that awaited. Rule 3. Follow the clown's commands without hesitation. The rules warned of dire consequences for those who disobeyed. Each command was a potential trap, designed to lead you deeper into madness. The clown's commands were not mere suggestions, but dark directives that would test your very willpower. Failure to comply could mean facing unimaginable horrors. Rule 4. Trust no one, not even yourself. This rule felt like a cruel joke, but the sinister tone of the clown's game made it chillingly real. Paranoia would become your constant companion as you struggle to discern friend from foe. The clown's game thrived on mistrust, using it to manipulate and isolate you, turning your own mind against you. Rule 5. Never speak of the game to anyone outside. The isolation imposed by this rule would amplify the terror. As you played, the line between reality and nightmare would blur, and the need to confide in someone would become overwhelming. But any attempt to share your experience could lead to horrifying consequences, trapping you in the game's psychological labyrinth. Rule 6. The game ends when the clown says it does. There was no escape from the clown's control. The duration of the torment was entirely in the clown's hands. Time itself became an enemy as you faced an indeterminate period of fear and suffering. The game's end was a cruel illusion, manipulated to keep you in a perpetual state of dread. Rule 7. You must play until you win or lose. The finality of this rule was both terrifying and inescapable. The game was not merely a challenge. It was a relentless ordeal. To win or lose was secondary to the suffering inflicted along the way. The clown's game was a twisted dance of agony, with no room for compromise or retreat. Rule 8. Beware of the mirrors. Mirrors, according to the rules, were not mere reflections, but portals to the unknown. The clown's game used them to distort reality, revealing nightmarish visions that could drive you to madness. Each glance into a mirror became a gamble with your sanity, as the reflections twisted and contorted in grotesque ways. Rule 9. There are no second chances. This rule underscored the finality and the severity of the clown's game. Mistakes were unforgivable, and there was no room for error. The stakes were high, and each misstep could lead to catastrophic results. The game thrived on your fear of irreversible consequences, making every decision fraught with tension. Rule 10. The clown's laughter is your only warning. The unsettling sound of the clown's laughter would signal impending doom. It was a harbinger of the torment that lay ahead, a chilling reminder that the clown's game was far from over. The laughter, though initially a mere nuisance, would soon become an inescapable reminder of your grim fate. Rule 11. Each wrong answer costs more than you can imagine. The cost of failure was more than just a loss in the game, it was a descent into deeper horror. Each wrong answer would trigger a new level of dread, escalating the stakes with every misstep. The consequences were not just punitive, but designed to break your spirit and sanity. Rule 12. The clown sees everything. Privacy was an illusion in the clown's game. The rule reminded you that every action, every thought was under the clown's scrutiny. There was no place to hide from the omnipresent gaze of the clown, and every move you made was part of the game's cruel design. Rule 13. You are never alone. Despite the apparent isolation, the clown's game ensured that solitude was a myth. Hidden figures and sinister presences would stalk you, feeding off your fear and paranoia. The game's design was to make you feel perpetually watched, amplifying your terror with each passing moment. Rule 14. The more you resist, the worse it gets. Resistance was not only futile, but also counterproductive. The game thrived on your defiance, using it to escalate the horror you experienced. Each act of resistance would result in increasingly grotesque and horrifying consequences, designed to break your spirit. Rule 15. You must play by the clown's rules, not your own. The game's structure was rigid, dictated entirely by the clown. Personal rules or moral codes were meaningless. The clown's rules were the only ones that mattered, and you had no choice but to conform to them, regardless of the personal cost. Rule 16. The clown's promises are lies. Any assurance or promise made by the clown was a deceitful ploy. The game was designed to exploit hope and trust, only to crush them with cruel and unexpected twists. The clown's false promises were part of the psychological manipulation that made the game even more terrifying. Rule 17. You may encounter others, but they are not allies. Any appearances of fellow players or supposed allies were illusions. The game was designed to foster mistrust and paranoia, using the guise of companionship to further isolate and torment you. Everyone you encountered was a potential threat or a pawn in the clown's game. Rule 18. There is no light in the clown's world. Darkness was more than a mere absence of light. It was a fundamental aspect of the clown's game. The absence of light created a disorienting environment where nightmares came to life. The darkness was a physical manifestation of the fear and horror that pervaded the game. Rule 19. You can never truly win. The concept of winning was an illusion. Even if you completed the game, the psychological scars and trauma would linger. The clown's game was a perpetual cycle of fear and torment, designed to ensure that victory was nothing more than a fleeting, hollow promise. Rule 20. The game adapts to your fears. The clown's game was a master of psychological manipulation, tailoring itself to your deepest anxieties. Your worst fears would be exploited, making each challenge increasingly personal and terrifying. The game's adaptability ensured that your terror was always intense and relevant. Rule 21. Every victory has a price. Winning a challenge in the clown's game came at a cost. The price was often far worse than the challenge itself, leaving you with a sense of hollow victory and deepened suffering. The game's design ensured that even moments of success were tainted with dread. Rule 22. The clown's gaze can paralyze you. The power of the clown's gaze was more than just a psychological tool. It had the ability to physically immobilize you. Staring into the clown's eyes could induce a paralyzing fear that left you vulnerable and helpless, a tactic used to heighten your terror. Rule 23. Your past will haunt you. The clown's game had a way of dredging up past traumas and fears. No matter how much you tried to escape your history, it would resurface to torment you. The game used your personal past as a weapon, ensuring that your own memories were a source of continuous fear. Rule 24. The environment changes with your fears. The very setting of the game would shift and morph according to your anxieties. The familiar would become unfamiliar, and safe spaces would turn into traps. This constant change heightened your disorientation and fear, making the game even more unpredictable and terrifying. Rule 25. Never trust the sounds you hear. The sounds within the game were deceptive and malevolent. What seemed like comforting noises could quickly become sinister and threatening. The auditory hallucinations were designed to mislead and terrify you, making every sound a potential harbinger of doom. Rule 26. The clown knows your weaknesses. The game was designed to exploit your vulnerabilities with chilling precision. The clown's knowledge of your personal weaknesses meant that every challenge was tailored to maximize your fear and discomfort. Your deepest insecurities became the focus of the clown's cruel game. Rule 27. The boundaries are not real physical boundaries, and limitations were meaningless in the clown's game. There were no safe zones or clear exits. The game manipulated space and reality, creating a sense of entrapment and confinement that intensified your fear. Rule 28. The clown's presence is never constant. The clown's unpredictable appearances added to the game's horror. You could never be sure when or one-third ChatGPT the clown would appear, which only heightened the anxiety of waiting. The sporadic nature of its presence made every moment fraught with tension. Each sudden, unannounced appearance was a reminder of the clown's omnipotence and the constant, lurking dread that accompanied it. Rule 29. Trust the whispers only if you want to be lost. The whispers in the dark were deceitful and intended to mislead. Following them might lead you deeper into the game's labyrinth, making escape even more elusive. The whispers played on your desperation, further entangling you in the clown's web of terror. Rule 30. The clown's smiles hide unspeakable horrors. What seemed like friendly or reassuring smiles were masks for the clown's true intentions. The more the clown smiled, the closer you were to experiencing unspeakable dread. Those smiles were deceptive traps, hiding the true nature of the game's horror. Rule 31. Every shadow may conceal a threat. The shadows within the game were alive with menace. They shifted and moved, concealing dangers that could strike at any moment. The constant threat lurking within the shadows heightened your fear, making every dark corner a potential source of terror. Rule 32. Your own thoughts may betray you. The game was designed to invade your mind, using your own fears and insecurities against you. Your thoughts, once a source of comfort, became sources of betrayal and paranoia. The clown's game manipulated your psyche, turning your own mind into a tool of torment. Rule 33. The clown's appearance can change at will. The clown could alter his visage to become even more disturbing. This fluidity in appearance meant that the terror was ever-evolving, never allowing you to grow accustomed to the horror. The changing face of the clown kept you in a state of perpetual unease. Rule 34. The game feeds on your emotions. Every fear, every moment of distress was a source of nourishment for the game. The more you suffered, the stronger the game became. Your emotional responses were not just reactions, but essential components of the clown's malevolent plan. Rule 35. The game's challenges are personal and invasive. Each task or challenge was designed to probe your deepest fears and insecurities. The clown's game was not just a test of skill, but a violation of your personal boundaries, making every challenge a painful exploration of your psyche. Rule 36. Escape attempts are futile. Any attempt to escape the game would only lead to more horrors. The clown's game was designed with no exit, ensuring that your efforts to flee would only result in escalating fear and suffering. The illusion of escape was a cruel trick to intensify your torment. Rule 37. The clown's control over time is absolute. Time within the game was distorted with no way to measure its passage accurately. The clown's manipulation of time added to the disorientation and fear, making each moment in the game feel both endless and excruciating. Rule 38. Every decision has irreversible consequences. The gravity of each choice you made was immense, with no option to undo or alter your decisions. The game's design ensured that every mistake led to escalating horror with consequences that could not be escaped or rectified. Rule 39. The clown's laughter echoes in your mind. The sound of the clown's laughter was not just a physical noise, but a haunting echo that lingered in your thoughts. This incessant, mocking laughter intensified your fear and anxiety, making it impossible to escape the game's psychological grip. Rule 40. The game manipulates your sense of reality. Reality within the game was fluid and malleable, designed to disorient and confuse you. The clown's game distorted your perceptions, making it difficult to distinguish between what was real and what was a product of your fear-driven imagination. Rule 41. You must confront your darkest fears. The challenges in the game were tailored to make you face your most terrifying fears. The clown's game used these fears as a weapon, forcing you to confront and endure them in ways you had never imagined. Rule 42. The game's atmosphere is suffused with dread. The environment within the game was designed to evoke a constant feeling of fear and unease. The atmosphere was thick with an oppressive sense of dread, making every moment feel heavy and fraught with imminent danger. Rule 43. Your own fears can become reality. The clown's game had the power to materialize your fears, turning them into tangible threats. The line between imagination and reality was blurred, making your deepest nightmares manifest in horrifying ways. Rule 44. You will never understand the clown's motives. The true purpose behind the clown's game was shrouded in mystery. Understanding why the game was created or what it aimed to achieve was impossible, adding to the sense of helplessness and confusion that permeated the experience. Rule 45. Every success brings new horrors. Completing a challenge did not mean relief, but rather an introduction to new, more terrifying aspects of the game. Successes were only preludes to further horrors, ensuring that the fear never truly subsided. Rule 46. The clown's game is never over. Even if you manage to complete the game's challenges, the sense of fear and trauma persists. The clown's game is an eternal torment, with the psychological scars lingering long after the physical game has ended. Rule 47. The game is designed to break you. The ultimate goal of the clown's game was to dismantle your sanity and spirit. Every element of the game was crafted to undermine your mental and emotional stability, leading you to the brink of total collapse. Rule 48. There are no winners, only survivors. The concept of winning is a cruel illusion. The game's design ensures that only those who endure the torment can claim survival. The true victory lies not in triumph, but in the sheer ability to make it through the nightmare. Until next time, thank you.